I couldn't let him die. He had just lost his brother. How could the chief be so heartless, killing my sister's lover and now wanting to kill her lover's brother too? After changing into the new clothes the workers had given me, I quietly left the room and went in search of Dave. I found him in the third sitting room, his head bowed, lost in thought. I rushed to him and grabbed his hand desperately. "I know you're not heartless," I said through tears. "Please, can you save him?" Dave shook his head slowly. "No. I can't do anything." Tears blurred my vision. All hope was lost. I couldn't fight the chief's men. I couldn't save the young man. For the first time I felt completely helpless. Looking back, I realized how suffocating everything had become. Maybe I had made the wrong choice. I should have escaped when I could, instead of trying to uncover the truth. I thought I was strong enough to bring justice for my sister, but the deeper I went, the more trapped I became. I dropped into a seat and cried bitterly. Realizing that another person might die because of my sister's selfish decisions tore me apart. The more I cried, the more I wondered what would happen to me if I ever disobeyed the chief. Would I be next? Then, to my surprise, Dave came closer and gently placed his hand on my shoulder. He let me rest my head against him. I never knew he had such a gentle side. From the beginning I had hated him. His arrogance, his silence, his strange relationship with my sister. I had wanted nothing to do with him. I only attended the wedding to support my sister. But fate twisted everything. I became the bride, the substitute wife to a man who never wanted me. Dave had only agreed to the marriage to please his father. The deal was simple. Bring the girl home as a bride, and he'd be allowed to leave the country. Now, as he comforted me, I sat up suddenly, wiping my tears. Something felt off. Why was he being kind to me? What did he really want? "Do you enjoy watching people die just because your father says so?" asked sharply. He sighed deeply and leaned back on the couch, glancing around to make sure no one was nearby. "I don't have a say in it," he said quietly. "I stay out of my father's dirty business. I just want to leave the country in peace." Silence fell between us. Then he reached for my hand, squeezed it gently and said, "I'm sorry you lost your sister. But it was her selfishness that led to her death." I pulled my hand away, stunned. His warmth felt strange, like something forbidden. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling. Dave hesitated. "I'm not supposed to say this, but my father doesn't forgive lies. When he found out your sister was pregnant and planned to pin it on me, he got." He stopped abruptly, stood up, and turned toward the door. But I caught his hand before he could leave, tears streaming down my face. I didn't need to say a word. He looked at me, and I could see the battle in his eyes. Fear of his father, guilt, and something like pity for me. Finally he muttered, his voice low and broken. "The chief bridesmaid. He paid her to your sister." His words were broken, but I pieced them together. "When I found out why," Dave continued softly, "it was because she was pregnant for another man and tried to pin it on me. My father was furious. She was supposed to be his wife. He took her out that same night, along with her boyfriend and the unborn child." Dave paused, rubbing his face with both hands. "I confronted him, but he said the plan would continue. He made me marry you instead. If I refused, your father would go to prison for his crimes." He sighed again. "Your father did something wrong, yes, but he didn't deserve this. He was the best man that ever worked for us. Still, nothing compares to what my father has done." "Be careful," Dave warned, his voice barely a whisper. "My father is not a man you can cross and live." Then he walked out, leaving me frozen in silence. I sank into the couch, my heart pounding. The truth finally made sense, and it broke me. Everyone I trusted had betrayed me. My parents had lied. My sister had hidden her secrets. The bridesmaid had sold her friend. And the only person I never trusted, the man I hated most, had told me the truth. Why? Why would Dave reveal his father's darkest secret to me? And above all, why was the chief so heartless? So it was my sister's bridesmaid who poisoned her the night before the wedding and convinced me to marry Dave. All part of the plan. Tears blurred my vision as I thought about it. My sister trusted that woman, took what she was given, and ended up dead, dumped in front of the hotel. Not just my sister. The child in her womb and her lover died the same night. 3 deaths in one night. All because a chief wanted a young woman to bear his children. What selfishness. What evil. I went into the bedroom they had given me and cried until my throat hurt. While I wept, someone told me the chief wanted to see me. I knew why. I pretended it was my time of the month and went to meet him. When he faced me, he said bluntly, "You are my wife, not Dave's. You will fulfill your duties as my wife." Hearing it made my pulse race. I felt sick at the sight of him. I was married to him, yet I lied and said it was my period. He smiled, said he understood, and let me retire for the night. Fear wrapped around me as I walked down the hall. Every step felt watched, and any wrong move could earn me a brutal punishment. Living in fear had never been my plan. Even Dave offered little comfort. His father controlled him. When I shut the door, I thought only of escape. This whole thing had been a mistake. I had come to find the truth about my sister's death and ended up trapped, married into someone else's cruelty. The best plan was to leave before it was too late. I told one of the workers I needed to buy clothes and a few personal things. The next morning I would go with a worker and a bodyguard, supposedly to ensure I didn't run away. I met Dave in the hallway and whispered, "This may be the last time you see me. Good luck with your father." I told him my plan to escape. "How do you intend to stay hidden?" he asked quietly. "Even if you hide in the sea, my father will find you." "I'll leave first and deal with the bridesmaid later," I answered and smiled before walking away. I worried he might betray me, but he stayed silent as I left his father's house. Maybe he was tired of living under his father's shadow. Maybe he wanted him gone. Maybe that's why he was helping. At the mall, I picked dresses while the worker and the bodyguard hovered. The bodyguard insisted on following me into the changing room. "Excuse me." Snap. "Do you expect to follow me while I change? Have you no respect for a woman's privacy?" I nearly raised my voice. The maid offered to follow instead. Once inside the changing room, I tried on a dress and handed it to the maid. When she left, I put my original clothes back on, left the new dresses behind, slipped out through the emergency exit, and ran. Escape was the only thing on my mind. Outside, I hopped into a tricycle and told the rider to drive until I told him to stop. 6 minutes later my father called. "Amanda, where are you? The chief is looking for you. Please come back for your life," he begged. I would rather die free than return to be a wife to a man older than my father, especially a man who had killed my sister. I went to my best friend's apartment but had the rider drop me a few blocks away. I ran to her house and tried to steady my breath before telling her everything. "You're not safe here either," she said. "They will find you. Come with me to my parents' village." I agreed. Anything to hide until the chief was brought to justice. Then Dave called. "Where are you?" "He has your parents," he said. The chief, Dave's father, had taken my parents to force me to return after my escape. My heart collapsed when Dave told me. My parents were the only family I had left besides my little brother. If anything happened to them, who would take care of him? Who would I even call family? Yet a painful truth pierced my chest. This was all my father's fault. If he hadn't stolen from the chief, none of these horrors would have unfolded. I told my friend everything, and she begged me to save myself first. "He doesn't have anything against your parents," she said. "But if you go back, do you think he'll let you or your parents go freely? You should have escaped when you had the chance." But I couldn't abandon my family, not even after all they did to me. Still, I couldn't return to the chief's house as his wife either. So I decided to run. That evening, my friend and I rushed to the nearest park to catch a bus to her parents' village. But halfway through the crowd, a hand grabbed me from behind. I turned and my heart sank. It was the same bodyguard from the mall. He had found me. In my desperation to escape, I had forgotten how close the park was to the mall. Of course they would start hunting from the nearest motor parks. Very easy to find you, he sneered. You want to escape. You'll take a bus. Checking parks was the first thing we did. Predictable. My friend was shoved aside, and I was dragged into a car and driven back. Fear choked me the entire ride. I felt death staring at me. When we got back, it was night. The chief stood outside waiting. Dave and my parents were beside him. My father looked slightly beaten. My mother was untouched. The moment I stepped out, the chief slapped me so hard that my vision went black for a moment. The sound rang in my ears. How dare you? Do you know whose wife you are? He roared. My lips trembled, but I refused to cry. Could not appear weak. He ordered his guards to take me to my room and commanded that I never be allowed to leave again. I had gone from a grieving sister, to a forced bride, to a prisoner. That night I cried silently. No future. No freedom. Just a wife to a cruel man who wanted children from me like livestock. For 4 days. No one came except a maid who brought food I refused to eat. My job is to serve food, not force you. If you won't eat, I throw it away and bring another one, she said coldly. I was starving, but my spirit refused to eat. On the 5th night the door opened. Not the maid, Dave. Let's go, he whispered. I hesitated. After everything, Dave was the last person I expected to save me. Do you want to see my father suffer? He asked suddenly. His father. Why would Dave want his father to suffer? You're not his only victim, Dave said, voice low. Follow me now or stay here forever. I followed, confused, scared but desperate. We drove toward the outskirts of town. Dave said he wanted to take me to a far village for my safety. But I froze. What if he was selling me off? What if this was another trap? Dave sighed heavily. I don't want anything from you, he said. I just want my father to pay. He killed my mother with his domestic violence. When I confronted him, he ordered that I be flogged. He lifted his shirt. Deep scars, long and twisted, marred his back. My father is a monster. Leaving you there. He'll destroy you. I swallowed hard. Dave, the man I hated, the man I never trusted, had been a victim too. Where is your father now? Yes. He's sick. In the hospital, Dave answered. That's why he hasn't come to see you. But if he recovers, it won't be good for you. I felt a shift inside me. Escape. Well, not anymore. I'm not running, I said firmly. Dave's face twisted with shock. Are you okay? Do you know what my father can do? Your father must pay for hurting me and killing my sister. You can't fight him, Dave warned. Then we'll fight him together, I said. He hurt both of us. He killed your mother. He killed my sister. He killed her lover. Let him taste what suffering feels like. Dave fell silent. Then I gave him the plan that had formed in my head. Take him from the hospital, strip him of his identity, cut him off from his money, and dump him in a far village where he'll have to beg for food. Dave's eyes widened in absolute shock. What? He shouted. And that was how the plan to bring down the chief truly began. Dave refused to make his father pay. I had advised him to take his father from the hospital, strip him of his identity, and drop him in the middle of a far village so he would have no choice but to beg for food daily. That was what I wanted. People like the chief did not deserve an easy prison sentence. Too many had died at his hands, and the police were clearly working with him. So who would make him pay if not me and Dave? The first step was to make him powerless. But Dave laughed and said it was impossible. His father's boys were always around the hospital, and the doctor in charge was their longtime family doctor, very loyal. So what excuse could Dave possibly give to take his father away? We fell into heavy silence inside the car parked at the outskirts of town. We had a plan, but it was unrealistic, and we had nowhere else to go. I told Dave to use whatever trust his father had in him. But Dave shook his head. Trust. He trusts his boys more than me. He knows I might wake up one day and make him pay for my mother's death. That was a big problem. Then, as if fate stepped in, Dave got a call. His father wanted to see him. Get his trust, I whispered. Go alone with him. Dave hesitated but agreed. He left me at the exact spot and went to meet his father. Waited. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like days. Finally, Dave returned, with his father asleep in the passenger seat. Alone. No guards. No escorts. How? I asked in disbelief. Dave explained that the chief had called him so they could visit his mother's grave together, privately. He wanted to drop flowers and clear his mind. I think he knows his end is near, Dave said quietly. Then why is he sleeping? I asked. Dave looked at me calmly. I made him sleep. So the mighty chief, the killer, the tyrant, had gone to visit the grave of the wife he abused to death. Maybe guilt was tormenting him. Maybe justice was finally catching up. But we had a new problem. What about his boys? Won't they notice he left with you? If he disappears, they'll accuse you first, I warned. They're probably still waiting at the gravesite, Dave shrugged. I'll deal with them later. My father must suffer. He made me motherless at a young age. For the first time, I saw raw pain in Dave's eyes. And I knew, we were truly in this together. That night, we drove through untarred paths, then joined the highway, heading toward a place only Dave knew. Suddenly the chief stirred awake. How did I fall asleep? He murmured. Then he turned and saw me. His expression hardened instantly. What is the substitute doing here? Dave, are you with her? Cold fear shot through me. But before he could escalate, Dave quietly put him back to sleep. How did you get that? I whispered. I've been preparing long before you came, Dave replied. You just sped things up. We continued into the night. He finally showed me a map. A remote riverine village. People there are fishermen and farmers. My father can't do any of those. If we drop him there, he'll be helpless, and we'll be close enough to watch. Buying a local house there is easy. The plan made sense. But something inside me felt uneasy. Dave wanted his father gone. But why did I feel like he had another motive toward me? Dave, are you sure about this? I asked quietly. Very sure. Thank you for the idea, he said, smiling. I stayed silent. If anything went wrong, I was ready to run. We reached the village at dawn. Dave changed his father into dirty clothes, rubbed his white singlet in mud, removed his jewelry, wallet, and shoes. We paid for a canoe and crossed the river. On the other side was the village. Small, quiet, poor. In the middle of the market, before the traders arrived, we laid the unconscious chief inside a wooden shed. Then we hid at a distance to watch. Soon, a market woman arrived with her goods. She saw the chief sleeping there, looking filthy. Angry, she slapped his head with her slippers. Get out of my shop. Go and find who will feed you, useless man. The chief jolted upright and barked. Do you know who I am? How dare you? Then he looked down at his clothes. Then around the unfamiliar village. Then at the women laughing at him. Confusion washed over him like cold water. Dave smiled. Smiled too. Now his suffering begins. Dave rented a small house close to the river and told me he would be back. He said he wanted to get some clothes for us, but I reminded him that I wasn't there to stay. Yes, I know this was my plan, but I can't just stay here at the expense of my dreams. Why don't we hand him over to the right authorities, someone bold enough to take up his case, then go back? I asked, already exhausted by everything. I didn't know how long we would have to remain in hiding, because we could only leave once the chief found his way out of the village. That could take days. Or minutes. But Dave shook his head. What dreams will you still have if my father finds his way back? I assure you, there may be no future for you once he returns. You are still his wife, remember? I took a deep breath. What use is a life lived on the run? So I decided to stay inside the small thatch house. I hid there while Dave left. But the moment he was gone, a heavy realization hit me. He might have run away, abandoning me and his father here in a village I didn't even know how to escape from. What if that was his plan from the start? But why didn't I think of that before foolishly following him? I hit my forehead gently and called myself the biggest fool alive. Then I opened the window and looked out carefully to see if the coast was clear before sneaking outside. I needed to understand this place and plan an escape before it became too late. Outside, I saw the chief still dressed in the dirty rags Dave forced on him, yelling at a passerby. The person warned him to keep away. Another scoffed. All these mad, evil uncles. I almost laughed. Yes, the chief was sane, but dressed like that, anyone would assume he'd lost his mind. Convincing people otherwise would take time. And if he persisted long enough, he would eventually find his way out of the village. I started asking quiet questions about the area. I discovered the village was deep inside a town I knew, but extremely far from where I lived. As I hurried back toward the house, a loud scream echoed. I turned sharply and saw the chief getting beaten by a young man. Apparently in desperation, the chief grabbed the man's wife and demanded to know where he was. The woman's husband immediately intervened and beat him up like the madman he appeared to be. "All I want to know is where I am," the chief kept screaming as the man beat him, until others intervened and separated them. "Serves you right," I muttered and hurried back to the house. After a while, I didn't even realize when sleep claimed me. Dave eventually returned. I rushed to open the door, relieved he hadn't abandoned me after all. But he had no bag with him. No clothes. Nothing. Instead, he said, "Come with me." "Where are we going?" I asked, confused. "To end it all and start fresh," he said. I didn't understand, until we reached a bushy area. There, standing before us, was my sister's lover's brother. The same man I thought had been killed on the chief's orders. He was alive. Healthy. Standing right there. "How is he alive?" asked Dave. "You saved him." I shrugged. "I saved him like you begged." "But you told me you couldn't because you were scared of your father," I said, suspicion creeping back into my heart. Dave didn't answer. Then I saw the chief, tied up at the foot of a tree. Dave pointed at him. "The condition for being alive," Dave said, referring to the man, "is taking his life." Before I could protest, the man launched at the chief, beating him with everything inside him. Rage, pain, betrayal. "For my brother. For nearly taking my life," he kept shouting with every strike. "What are you doing?" asked Dave, trembling. "Was this your plan?" Dave sighed. "I modified your plan. At first, I wanted to use him as a trap for my father. Then you gave me another idea and I thought, why not end it? End all this hatred. All these lies. All these years of living with a man who controls me like his puppet. So I brought him here." Everything suddenly began to make sense. Dave had a plan from the beginning. That was why he agreed so quickly to mine. "Then what happens?" I asked. "If the chief dies, everyone will know you took him from the hospital. You'll be the prime suspect. Don't do anything rash. Think this through." The chief was badly beaten now, barely recognizable. But Dave ignored me. He sat beside his father, staring at him with the eyes of someone who had carried pain for too long. "Remember when you claimed you were indestructible?" Dave shouted. "You told me I was your son and should obey whatever you commanded. Remember the night you hit my mother?" His voice cracked. You hurt her and took her from me forever. Then you lied. Lied that she fell. Forced me to report that she fell. He raised his shirt slightly, showing faint scars. And when I confronted you with the truth, you asked your boys to flog me. I still have the marks. My own father did that to me. His voice grew thunderous. Where are your boys now? These boys who protected you, made you untouchable. Just one day without them, and you look like this. Dave, I whispered in fear. This is wrong. A son shouldn't kill his father. Nobody should. Hand him over to the authorities. Don't do this. Dave slowly turned to me, his eyes full of something dark. That's why I brought you here, he said coldly. So everyone will think you killed my father for revenge. And I will never be a suspect. I'm sorry. But you have to be the sacrifice to cover this up. What? Before I could react, Dave signaled the man to finish off his father as he began walking toward me. Now I understood that Dave wanted to pin his father's death on me in this village, then return home as the grieving son who tried to save his father. No one would suspect him. Everything suddenly made sense. Why he agreed to my plan so quickly. Why he pushed everything forward without thinking. It wasn't about justice for my sister. It was all for his personal vendetta. And now it was about to consume me. Before Dave could reach me, I ran. The bush was vast, and the deeper I ran, the more lost I became. But each time I looked back, Dave was gaining ground. He was faster, stronger, and determined. Grass blades cut my skin, scratched my face, and almost blinded me, but nothing mattered. I was running for my life. Before I knew it, Dave caught me and pinned me to the ground. I screamed, but he laughed coldly. No one can hear you, Amanda, he whispered. Very simple, carry the whole blame. Let me get the police, and you confess to killing my father. I'll tell them you attacked us on our way to my mother's grave. After all, isn't this what you wanted? Revenge for your late sister. My father will die, and that's enough justice for you. I twisted my arm, fighting to break free, but Dave was too strong. Amanda, he said, just listen. I helped you achieve your aim, right? I never wanted to kill your father, I snapped. If I wanted him dead, I would have played the perfect wife and poisoned him in that house. We should have handed him to the authorities. Dave scoffed. My father would walk free. Those right authorities all work for him as long as the money is right. Not all of them, I thought. Some people still fight for justice. But Dave's mind was made up. He tried dragging me up to force me into confessing to a crime I didn't commit. But I grabbed a handful of sand and threw it into his face. He screamed, unable to see, and I ran again, faster than I ever had in my life. I burst out of the bush and into the village market. Evening had fallen. Most traders were heading home. But luck was on my side. A few fishermen and supply men were still around. The moment Dave lunged at me from behind, they seized him instantly. They didn't beat him. They simply dragged us both to the vigilante post. Once there, they questioned us. Dave kept quiet. But I told them everything, from the chief being tied up in the bush to Dave's plan to pin everything on me. They sent scouts to the bush immediately while the interrogation continued. So the same family killed your sister the night before her wedding, the leader said. And now they want you to carry the blame for the chief's death once he dies? I nodded silently. The leader turned to Dave. Is this true? Dave refused to answer, until a heavy slap landed on his cheek. Is it true? The leader repeated. Dave barked angrily. Why won't you believe her? You men always run to defend beautiful women. What did beauty have to do with justice? The leader didn't tolerate nonsense. Another blow landed across Dave's eye. So you tried to commit murder on our land, he snapped. People passing by hissed and snapped their fingers in disgust. Within moments, Dave received the beating he had been asking for. "You're strangers here," the vigilante leader said. "Luckily for you, you didn't hurt any villager. We'll hand you over to the police." Dave laughed. "With pleasure, sir." The confidence in his voice made my heart sink. He believed he would manipulate or bribe his way out, while I would suffer in his place. But the leader laughed louder. "You think bribes work everywhere. Have you met Joe? Joe the incorruptible. Every politician has tried to buy him. He rejects every penny. You think we don't still have good men in uniform?" I took a deep breath in relief. Maybe it was truly over. But Dave sneered. "Everyone has a weakness. Find it and you can control them." The leader slapped him again. "How will you find anyone's weakness when you'll be locked up without bail until trial?" Dave finally went silent. I wasn't scared of going to the police. I was innocent. Seconds later, the scouts returned carrying the chief's body. My sister's lover's brother was nowhere to be found. He must have escaped. The scout leader spoke calmly. "The chief is dead." A cold wind blew through the vigilante post. The mighty had fallen. Dave ordered his own father to be beaten to death. It was unbelievable. I stood there, shocked, staring at the chief's badly beaten, battered body. The vigilante leader looked at Dave and asked, "Did you do this?" Dave said nothing. His jaw tightened. His eyes were burning with anger. The vigilante members didn't waste time. They took both of us and handed us over to the police. I gave my report, and investigations began immediately. And I did not forget the bridesmaid, the one who poisoned my sister. The next morning, I led the police to her house. When we got there, her roommate confirmed she had taken her own life. After returning from the fake wedding night, she had been restless, screaming in her sleep, waking up sweating, pacing around the room. Her roommate said she left for work and returned to find she had taken something that ended her life. Maybe the guilt was too heavy for her. The guilt of killing her own friend, my own sister. Yet, a part of me still couldn't believe she was truly dead. I demanded to see her body. We went to the mortuary, and there she was, stretched out cold, lifeless. They confirmed she had been dead for 2 days. "Forgive me, Father." But seeing her there brought a cold satisfaction. The same punishment she gave my sister had finally come back to her. When we returned to the station, Joe, the incorruptible officer, asked me to explain everything again. I did. Then he went to interrogate Dave. I witnessed everything. All Dave did was laugh. "It was worth it," Dave said. "Since that old man is dead, then everything was worth it. Even if I'm sent to jail." That sealed it. Dave was arrested, and I was granted bail. I returned home. My parents were seated in the living room, dirty, worn out, and ashamed. My father asked where I had been. My mother tried to touch me, but I stepped back sharply. I couldn't believe these were the same people who gave birth to me. Parents who were willing to sacrifice their own children to pay their debts and hide their sins. The man who stole from the chief decided to pay for his crimes by marrying off his daughters to a man old enough to be his father. "You don't deserve to be called my father," I said. I stormed into my room and packed my things. I would rather struggle alone than live with selfish parents who could sell me off again. My younger brother came to see me off. I told him quietly, "Once you're old enough, leave this house. One day they might sell you out too." He nodded. He said he already knew the truth, and pitied me deeply. Back in the sitting room, my mother tried to hold my hand again. "Where are you going?" "Is the chief?" "Chief?" Cut in. "You are worried about him." They both stayed silent, guilty. "The only time you will ever see me again is when I choose to settle down, if I even bother to invite you to my wedding. I don't need your consent for anything." My mother begged. My father apologized. I ignored both of them. "Get ready for the chief's burial," I said coldly. Then I picked up my bags and left. That was the last time I saw my parents. I still spoke with my brother on the phone, but I didn't want to see my parents again. Not then, not soon. I started life afresh with the friend who had helped me before. And I never regretted cutting off my parents. Several weeks later, my brother called again. Dave had been tried and sentenced to life imprisonment for murder. Life continued. I became the substitute wife who ended the chief and his family's cruelty in our community. Trust, it's priceless. Be careful who you give it to. I trusted my parents, and they sold me out. I trusted Dave, and I nearly died for it. I trusted the bridesmaid, and it almost cost me my freedom. Just be sure the person you trust is not silently waiting for the chance to destroy you.